Hello, everyone. My name is Diana Chavez. I am the ASI president, and thank you all for joining. I will be moderating throughout the webinar, and I have a list of questions that ASI gathered beforehand from students that I will be asking our panelists today. If we have time closer to the end, we will have a Q&A session. This session is intended for follow-up questions or any questions that were not answered. Students will utilize the Q&A tool down below. If you have trouble looking that, you just look down below and it should be next to the, it should be the only one actually down below. Thank you. And so before I begin asking questions, I want to welcome our very own President Covino first.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good to be with you virtually. I'm getting used to being inside a rectangle, and this is an important meeting, and I'm glad to be able to join you. It's been so far, and will continue to be, an unprecedented year for Cal State LA, and we, as you know, continue to maintain as our highest priorities the health and safety of our students, faculty, and staff, and by extension, our community members, and work very closely with public health officials on our protocols and priorities. As you may know, that California registered 1 million cases now, has just registered 1 million cases. So we're in the midst of a very serious concern about the pandemic and where it's going at the moment, and want to all be taking special precautions, especially around the holidays, and sort of heeding the advice of public health officials, because it is clear that when we stray from that advice, that there are outbreaks and there is spreading, and there are infections and there are hospitalizations and there are deaths. So this is a life and death situation. And for all of those reasons, and especially because we are in a particularly vulnerable county and region and want everyone to stay safe and healthy, I've been very intent on those issues, on health and safety, and on protocols, priorities, and restrictions that maintain it. And I will continue to be as we move forward. And I really do applaud our students and faculty and staff for their patience and their negotiation of these difficulties, and their real dedication to moving forward, continuing to interact with one another in productive ways, and to make this year an academic year that is successful in this very difficult context. You're all just wonderful examples of that kind of dedication, and I know that it's a tough year, and that it's taken some special energy to move through it. So thank you all for that. We certainly welcome your questions, and not only today, but want to be responsive whenever you call upon us, and supportive, and as helpful as we can possibly be to keep you safe and healthy, and also move our students forward to the completion of their degrees. The CSU system a couple of weeks ago called Cal State LA a shining example of student success. And this was at their graduation 2025 conference, in which they noted that Cal State LA has been especially successful during this pandemic in pivoting to online and online approaches to advising, to general interaction, to health and safety, and they certainly wanted to cite that, because, and I'm glad they did, because it's great to have your dedication recognized in that way. So I know that Diana has a number of questions to put out there, and working with Diana as your leader has been a pleasure and a privilege. And I'm looking forward to continuing this year in close consultation with her and with ASI as we move forward. So President Chavez, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Covino. I would now begin asking our students questions. Panelists, friendly reminder, if you can please introduce yourselves before answering the questions, that will be well appreciated. Thank you. Starting off with the first question. Okay, so the first question is there a plan to increase the number of food distribution bags from 200 to a ratio that fits our student body accordingly? Additionally, is there a plan to move from a biweekly basis food distribution to a weekly distribution?
Hi, everybody. I'm Carol Roberts-Korb. I am the Interim Associate Vice President for Student Life and Dean of Students, and I'm going to field that question because that's under the purview of the Dean of Students office. So a little background first. As with many other programs, and I'm sure we'll hear this quite a bit tonight, we've had to pivot, obviously, because of COVID-19. Wasn't feasible, obviously, to run the in-person USU food pantry program because of the current health and safety guidelines. So at the beginning of the pandemic, we considered various options. Thankfully, thanks to a generous partnership with UAS, we were able to start the drive up, walk up food pantry distribution in October, and we've had 2 very successful distributions so far. So the 200 bags per week was decided upon based on previous averages that we had when we had the in-person pantry. And the plan to operate bi-weekly was part of a pilot just to see how students would be interested and would utilize the program. So to date, we've had 576 students sign up, but only 451 students have actually selected and picked up a bag. So we've had less than our projected 600 in those 2 weeks if we had operated at 100%. Another way to look at that is about 78% of students who sign up actually show up to pick up a bag. So again, we've only done it for 2 weeks. Each week we have seen an increase in students signing up and picking up a bag. So we're hopeful that by the end of the semester, we'll be closer to that 100% pickup rate. But more directly to your question, we're very open to operating on a weekly basis. That decision is partly based on current funding. The reality is that each bag at this moment costs about $30 to produce. And with how we're currently funded for this program, running bi-weekly is sustainable. As we explore additional funding sources, we'll definitely, if those funding sources help us, we'll offer the service more regularly. So we're exploring those different funding sources and partnerships. We've currently applied for a grant from LA County that could help us achieve that weekly distribution. The foundation, and we'll probably hear more about this during the webinar, has created a campaign to ask alumni to contribute to basic needs, which includes our food support program. So we're very hopeful, and particularly if ASI continues their generous contribution and efforts in supporting us, we do hope and think that we can get to that weekly distribution.
Thank you very much. Next question.
Can I add one more thing, Diana?
Of course.
This is Jose. How are you?
Very good.
Thanks. Good. Thanks for doing this. One of the things that we should mention is that next Friday, the university is going to be providing 800 bags of food and a flu shot clinic here on campus. And that was because of the generous support of the Cal State LA Foundation and President Covino. So they were able to they're purchasing 800 bags, and that is hopefully our students will be able to come and get their flu shots and also pick up a bag of food. And that is in addition to the two, the bi-weekly pantry pickups. So I just wanted to mention that. And you'll be getting some more information about that too, because we really want ASI to co-sponsor that with us.
Thank you very much. Next question. How can I access a counselor during a pandemic? Is it in person or online?
Hello, that question goes to me. I'm Monica Gizabi, the director of the Student Health Center. I'm so glad to be with you and have this opportunity to talk to you about student health services, counseling services, and answer questions you may have for me. Our counseling and psychological services has stayed accessible to students. But of course, because of COVID-19, we have had to modify our operations so that we don't bring people to the building unnecessarily, and as much as possible, create distance between individuals. That includes students and counselors and everyone else who works in the Student Health Center. CAPS currently offers teletherapy as the main modality of service to students. Telehealth or teletherapy is providing services remotely to our patients and clients. And we may use different types of technology to provide that service. That could be telephone, or it could be a video Zoom type of service. We do, however, have CAPS reception staff working on site, and they are here to answer calls from students, schedule appointments, and so forth. So if a student needs counseling services, they would call our CAPS reception number, which actually would be our main number, the health center number, and then they will be instructed to follow the prompts to access the CAPS reception desk. At that point, the reception staff would ask the student what the reason for call is, and arrange for the student to meet with the counselor remotely. When that appointment time arrives, a counselor will call the student from their location and have a brief, about 20 to 30-minute conversation with the student on the phone to understand why the student is seeking counseling services, the urgency of the service, and the risks involved. And at that point in conversation with the student, make a plan for next service that they're going to receive. The next service in many cases would be individual counseling. Sometimes it could be a group counseling session, but we want students to be engaged in that process of identifying the best modality of treatment for them. And once, let's say, a counseling session is scheduled, then that session can happen either over the phone, but also in many cases over Zoom. The student will receive instructions from the staff, reception staff, as well as the counselor as to how that session will happen.
Thank you very much. This
Sure.
is another question for you. We can just hold on another quick second. What resources is CAPS providing for international and out-of-state residents, being that they don't qualify for teletherapy or telehealth?
That's a very good question. One of the challenges that clearly COVID-19 pandemic has created for our students is that many of them may not actually be physically in the state of California at the time when they need a service, whether that would be a counseling service or a health service. And the challenge that this has created, and the dilemma, is not unique to Cal State LA. This is something that all CSUs, UCs, and in fact, all colleges and universities in California, and of course many other states, are faced with, is to provide healthcare services to students who are not physically in our state. There are laws that obviously we have to abide by. Any licensed healthcare provider must provide healthcare services in the state where they are licensed to provide that service. Having said that, the Student Health Center will do everything that we can within legal parameters to help our students. We will not abandon a student who is outside of California or outside of the country at the present time. When students contact us and we find out that they are not in California, we will talk to them. We will find out what the reason is that they're calling and what type of health service they need. If there are services that we can provide, again, within that legal parameters, we would provide that. For example, that service might be offering the student to attend a Let's Talk session with a CAPS counselor, where a licensed CAPS counselor is available to provide consultation and advice. Or it could be a workshop that a counselor might provide, and the student would be able to attend, again, having access to a clinician, a counseling clinician. It could be that a referral specialist or referral specialist may be the person that needs to talk to students because they need something immediately. Let's say they need a health service. There needs to be some sort of assessment and so forth. And our referral specialist is the best person to identify resources in their local areas, low-cost services, and if they have insurance, assist the student to identify a provider within their insurance plan to see. This challenge, as I said, is being considered by the Chancellor's Office of CSU, and they are working on a possible solution in the future. But at the present time, this is what we will do to help our students who are not physically in the state of California. We will do our best to help them.
Thank you very much. Next question. Okay. Is there a possibility to implement safe study spaces on campus next semester?
Sorry, can you hear me? I'm Nancy Wadamaki. I'm the Vice President for Student Life. Sorry about that. I was having a little trouble. My internet's unstable and I wasn't able to see anybody for a little while there. I can take that question, but anything is possible in terms of study spaces. But the real answer is we are following very closely the guidance of public health, both the state of California and LA County, and as you know, the pandemic and the situation with the pandemic is evolving. We thought at one point the rates were dropping, and now it looks like they're increasing and the winter surge is here. So we are following guidance, and so far the guidance has been very clear that public health does not wants us to limit very carefully the number of students who are on campus, and that's why we have this semester we have Very few students coming to campus to take classes face-to-face. Really only our nursing students. And so that's the answer is really, we are following guidance, and maybe things will change in the spring that will allow us to make some different choices.
Thank you very much. Next question. How can a student, or how can we request a laptop and Wi-Fi to loan?
Again, that's me. It's a very easy answer, I'm happy to say. All you would do is email the Dean of Students office at calstatela.edu/Dean of Students, and we will provide a laptop and a hotspot, or just one of those services.
Thank you very much. Okay, next question. What precautions are being taken to protect students in housing? What is the process now to apply to housing?
Hello. So my name is Betty Kennedy, and I'm the interim director for housing. We've been grappling with all those questions since March. So since the beginning of March, the resident safety has been the core of the decisions that we've made. We've extensively consulted with county health, with the health center, with our administrators on campus, and the chancellor's office. And there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of back and forth, a lot of decision making, always with resident safety in mind. So at the very beginning, we made sure that we chose a scenario after entertaining many different scenarios that was intentionally reducing the number of residents on campus per guidelines from public health. So with that in mind, we started out by limiting the number of students that could come in for the fall semester, and that we wanted to keep it safe with only one person per bathroom, which is the way that the county health described that ratio. So in our decision, we have one person per apartment. That also enables us to quarantine or isolate easily without having to move people into a section or having to set aside spaces and move people if they are positive. So that has been something that has worked to our favor, and that we've been able to keep our residents safe and sort of secluded in order to make up for that community building that we're missing. We have virtual programming and a lot of meetings that we take place with our residents to stay in contact with them. So we have moved all that to the virtual environment. We have instilled COVID-related policies. Of course, it's mask wearing, it's educating our residents on hand washing and all the different precautions that have been put out to us in our community. And we're requiring that on campus, especially around our community as well, so that there's physical distancing. We've closed all of our meeting spaces. Right now we have appointments for the laundry room. So we make sure that we are cleaning and sanitizing and limiting all the access to those spaces to make sure that we reduce that ability to catch the virus. We have a dining program that is takeaway meals only. So we have very limited exposure there. People come in, they physically distance. We have staggered time periods. We have enough time period to have our residents come through. They choose their meal, and then they leave one way in, one way out. So again, it's the same precautions that have been put across our state that we are following for that as well. I'm trying to remember if there was any other possibilities. You also asked, I think, about taking students in for how do they apply for housing. Last year, we had many residents trying to move in for the fall, but what we did was we polled everyone who applied for housing, and we wanted to make sure that they understood the environment that they would be moving into and making sure that they were comfortable with that and still wanted that. And what we had were a lot of students that canceled or postponed their applications to spring. And now that it's spring, we're going to poll them again and see if they're still interested in coming and living on campus, since we're continuing the virtual environment and the online classes. And once we ascertain that, they have the same choices again, that they can ask us if they want to live on campus, or they can cancel their contract with no penalty. So based on that, we're going to do the same thing for spring as well. I think I answered the question.
Thank you very much. Next question. This one, it was a very reoccurring question between students. Why are the financial aid office wait times so long? Get through the phone, via phone.
Hi, this is Margaret Garcia. I'm Executive Director of Enrollment Services, and I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce you to our new Associate Director of Financial Aid, Linda Lopez, and she's going to help me respond to any questions that come up regarding financial aid. Linda?
Yes, hi. Thank you, Margaret, for the introduction. So why are the financial aid office wait times so long? You know, as some of you know, that due to our high peak processing periods, the expected wait time could be longer than usual throughout the year. We always encourage every student to visit the frequently asked questions section of our website for important updates, and to check the to-do list on their Get account for required documents to be submitted to the office. Wait times are typically under 5 minutes, but during peak periods, the wait time can exceed at least 2 hours.
Thank you very much. Next question. Why were financial aid packages rescinded? Why do I need to pay back those funds?
Linda?
It's me again. Sorry, I'm muting and unmuting myself, so thank you. So to remain eligible for financial aid, students are required to meet and maintain eligibility standards such as satisfactory academic progress and enrollment through a process that we call census. Students who are not meeting or maintaining these standards may have their aid adjusted and or suspended. For additional information, you know, I encourage all students, or even about general financial aid eligibility, I encourage you to visit our website for just additional information.
Thank you very much. Next question is, okay. Will there be credit or no credit option for this semester?
So I will, good afternoon. This is Jose Luis Alvarado, Provost. And so that is a good question to ask. As you all may recall, in the spring semester, given that the semester started face-to-face and then there was a quick need to pivot to virtual instruction, that was a difficult period of time for both students and faculty. And so at that time, the decision was that there needed to be a credit, no credit option. We have had time to plan for the fall semester. That is currently not an option. However, that issue is one that will need to be addressed by the faculty in the Academic Senate. The Chancellor's Office has issued guidance on that particular issue, in that courses that are offered for credit, no credit, may have a detrimental impact on certain groups of students. And so it's difficult to make a blanket decision about it, given that it could have serious repercussions for some students. So again, it's something that needs to be discussed in the Academic Senate.
Thank you very much. Next question. When will we be given access to textbooks or course reserves online while the campus is closed?
That's me again, Provost Jose Luis Alvarado. And I will have to defer on that question and when I get a response, I'll make sure to share it with President Chavez so that you can distribute to the student membership. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question. Is there a plan to better support freshman students assimilating to university during this pandemic?
Hi, Diana. It's Michelle Hawley, Associate Vice President and Dean of Undergraduate Studies here. As a matter of fact, yes, we have been very concerned about welcoming our freshmen, a group of students that have spent the last semester of their high school remotely and have taken a number of steps in hopes of making them feel welcome. So first off, over the summer, instead of having mass registration advising sessions, we had multiple smaller advising sessions, including small group advising sessions to help students find their way into the right classes and into the right college. Every freshman is also in the process of being assigned their very own advisor for this year. Over the summer, we also created a remote Canvas shell and invited all of our incoming first-year students, including our new transfers, to participate. So this showed them how to participate in a class and also directed them to academic resources, including the Center for Academic Success. Finally, the Smart Start program is offering evening hours for tutoring and for academic coaching. And coming this spring, we are expanding our academic coaching and peer mentor program so that more students, freshmen and sophomores, can participate.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hawley. Next question. How do we get more information on the Graduate Resource Center and what do they offer?
Hello, that would be me, and I am Dr. Karen Elliott Brown, AVP and Dean of Graduate Studies. So the best place to get information of about the GRC is on our website. We have information that lets you know what resources are available. We also have a GRC Canvas shell that we created, and what we put there is information on all the deadlines and all the materials that we've offered. We've had several workshops. We have graduate student orientation materials. All of those are on our Canvas shell, and all faculty and students who join, they can get regular announcements. We send out announcements about once a week in terms of our current resources. So our email address is Graduate Resource Center, Cal State LA at Graduate Resource Center. And we also are providing, continuing to provide the services that we've always provided. We have thesis reviewers and we have writing consultants that are available to students through remote consultation. They're still available. We have office hours to respond to general inquiries. And we keep our website updated, and we do also have our phones responded to. So if you have calls and questions, we're available. So we will continue to be available. And we also want graduate students to know that they have access to all the resources that the Dean of Students is providing and the Health Center, because for some reason, I think some grad students think that those are just for undergrads. So we offer additional services, but all the other student services offered on campus are available to our graduate students as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brown. Next question we have, how will Tutoring and the Writing Center continue their services in the spring, and how will they market these services to students?
Great, thank you, Diana. So the Center for Academic Success will continue to provide services through a synchronous peer tutoring platform using Zoom in the spring. This is the same method that we're currently using in the fall. All information is clearly laid out on our website, www.calstatela.edu/academic success. In addition, we offer weekend and evening support through our partnership with NetTutor. In addition to individual tutoring, we will continue to connect with students through the use of workshops and webinars, where we will provide a forum to share student success strategies. The marketing for CAS services will involve the usual website. In addition, we'll be sending EAB messages to students. And we're also working with faculty to communicate with them about how to refer students to the Center for Academic Success. And finally, there are students who will receive messages from an early alert system in critical gateway courses that allow faculty to direct students who may need additional help or support.
Thank you very much. Next question we have, why is there less course availability in the spring? What happened to evening courses?
So that would be me. And so that's a great question. The reality is that the spring semester historically offers less courses than the fall semester. Additionally, the spring schedule is not complete yet. Semester hasn't started yet. So as there is a demand for courses, additional courses will be built. Just to compare last spring to this spring, across all 8 academic colleges, we're offering 4,217 course sections, and that is only 26 sections less than last year. So we're almost on target to offer the same after demand is determined. In terms of evening courses, we did compare evening course offerings last spring to this spring, and there seems to be about a 6% decrease. I would encourage students that if they do have a need for an evening course, to contact the department chair and make a request, because as chairs are looking to open additional sections, they will have a record to show that there is indeed a need for evening courses. And so rather than scheduling the additional courses that will be going on the schedule in the daytime, they will be scheduling those in the evening based on what students are making clear is their need. So that would be the best approach to deal with it.
Thank you very much. Next question, would tuition and fees be lowered in the spring semester?
Okay, that would be me, Lisa Chavez, the Vice President for Administration and CFO on campus. Currently, there's no intention of lowering the fees. We are looking at least one fee to see what possibly, if any, amount would not be used. But for most of the fees, which are the health fee and the athletic fee and some of the other mandatory fees, those are all currently being used, and services are being provided for students.
Thank you very much.
Diana, if I just may chime in a little bit. In terms of tuition itself, that decision is made by the CSU Board of Trustees, and that is not up for us to decide. It's up to the trustees as far as tuition.
Thank you. Next question. Will there be any campus resources that will open remotely next semester, whether that's the Financial Aid Center or the Student Health Center?
I take the question for the Student Health Center. The Student Health Center will continue to be accessible and available to students. We offer a combination of on-site and remote services. Our operations will remain modified due to COVID-19 to protect students and our staff. The services will definitely be accessible to students. Currently, we employ a combination of telehealth and on-site services. We try not to bring the student in the building if they don't need to come physically in the building, because every close interaction with another individual from outside of your household potentially puts you at risk for exposure to COVID-19. And so we assess the student's need for the on-site service. If they need it, then they will come, and we have a process in place upon their arrival to make sure that they are screened, they are provided with masks if they don't have one on, and then they will go through some screening, symptom screening, temperature screening, and they will be let into the Student Health Center and receive the services they need. If the service can be provided remotely, which would be safer, then that arrangement will be made for the students. We currently have counseling services primarily provided remotely, and our health services, medical services are currently provided partially on site and partially remotely. We continue to have our pharmacy on site, operating on site. We have our laboratory X-ray services as well on site from Monday through Thursday. Students will be assisted with receiving the services they need in a safe manner.
Thank you very much. Well, the question that was in there as well, would the Financial Aid Center reopen at some capacity?
Hi, this is Linda from Financial Aid. In-person appointments are not available at this time. Our office hours are Monday through Friday from 8 to 5, but students can schedule an appointment with their assigned financial aid advisor by visiting our website and either completing the request to meet with an advisor form or scheduling an appointment through the link.
Thank you very much. Next question. Will attendance be removed from the grading scale for spring semester?
So that would be me. Now, in terms of specific requirements for courses, that sort of gets into the arena of, the purview that a faculty has in terms of how they choose to offer a course. It's academic freedom issue. Now, as a student, if a faculty has, because there are some faculty that may have attendance as a requirement and others may not. Understanding that, we are in a virtual environment, anytime a student has an issue with anything that's on a course schedule, on a syllabus, first thing to do is approach the faculty and just explained, the faculty, that you need help understanding why that is a requirement for the course. And once you engage in dialogue with that faculty, it may be that the faculty gets to understand the issue, at least from your perspective, and may decide to make changes to this syllabus. If that is not satisfactory to you as a student, then just follow the typical sort of traditional complaint process that a student has within academic affairs, would be then to go to the department chair and speak to the department chair about the concern you have in terms of the requirement for the course that from the student's perspective may not seem reasonable. If no resolution is reached either at the faculty level or at the department chair level, then the student is encouraged then to go to the dean of the college, the academic dean, and express their concern there. If no resolution is reached at that level, then there is a formal student complaint process that the dean of students oversees, and certainly they can avail themselves of that formal sort of complaint process. So just know that as a student, you have a voice and you have to sort of express that and sort of advocate for why this may not be a workable solution. Most faculty will be reasonable and may make those adjustments, but again, they need to hear from you as a student. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question. A lot of students feel that some professors are not being flexible or fair during this pandemic. So how will a student be informed on how to file a grievance or a grade appeal?
So I will answer certainly. I think it's very much the process that I spoke about with regards to sort of just the complaint process within academic affairs. Once it's a formal grievance, then it goes into the student affairs realm. And so again, the process is approach the faculty and express your concern. It doesn't get resolved, go to the department chair. Doesn't get resolved, go to the dean of the college. And if that's not resolved at that level, then the grievance process. Not to say that you had to do that. You could always go straight to a grievance process. But someone else can probably add more details in terms of what the grievance process is on this campus.
Thank you. Is there an answer to how they how can they start the grievance process?
I was going to ask Carol Roberts-Korb, our interim AVP and Dean of Students, to answer that question. Carol, can you help out?
Sure, hi. There are various grievance processes available to students on campus. In terms of a grade, there's the grade appeal and academic decision process that goes through the University Academic Appeals Board. And that information is available on the undergraduate studies website. If it's a non-academic decision or something to do outside of grades, then true, there is a grievance process through the Office of the Dean of Students, and you can find out information about that on the Dean of Students website.
Thank you very much. Next question is there a plan to reopen research labs in spring semester?
That would be me. So research labs and studios continue to be open for students who have pending graduation requirements, be it undergraduate graduation requirements or graduate. Be mindful that faculty advisors have to initiate a return to campus application in order for students to access those labs. Again, understanding that we are in the midst of a pandemic and all of the risks associated with COVID-19, not until the whole review process and all of the public health protocols are ensured, in light also of all of the sort of demands for campus access are considered. So it's making sure that students are safe, faculty are safe, our communities are safe, and our staff. And so do know that our priority is making sure that students who have degree requirements have access to those labs. And when it's research related, the faculty are the ones who drive that request process. So far, we have 14 different labs currently active with a total of about 21 students who are engaged in research activities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question. Amidst the pandemic, how do you hope to build a positive relationship with students in order to harbor trust and for them to feel like they have the ability to approach you during difficult times? And I believe this question was directed specifically to President Covino, if he's still here.
Just pushing some buttons. I think that I think we've all made really important and notable efforts to put up programs and communication venues that have allowed for interaction with students and others. We'll see that, I mean, the cross-cultural centers have done a great deal. We have other initiatives and programs that are, for instance, right now, answering questions about the current election, holding forums along those lines. We have presentations such as this one, and clubs and organizations actually are, in many cases, vibrant presences that are inviting interaction with students. And as a video that we recently presented to the Board of Trustees and was widely applauded indicated, our interaction with advisors, for instance, student interaction with advisors is up 450%. So we're carefully monitoring and measuring how much interaction is available, trying to keep the lines of communication open, using social media as wisely and as aggressively as we can. And if there are other modes of communication that students and others are aware of that we're not taking advantage of, it would be good to know that. And if there are times or incidences that in which the communication venues aren't working as they should, then we need to know about that too. It's always an imperfect process, but I think everybody's devoting great energy to the kind of interaction that you.
Thank you very much, President.
Could I add something?
Of course.
I was just going to say that, I think I can speak for really the entire administrative team, all the folks here on this Zoom call, as well as everybody else, everyone who works here. In that one thing I think that the pandemic has underscored is really the importance of compassion and kindness. We have countless stories of grateful students who have reached out and who've been helped. And, the pandemic hasn't left any person unscathed. I think about our staff members who deliver essential student services remotely while helping their children manage their own virtual school environments. Many of our students have that situation themselves. I think of my colleagues who've lost loved ones, who have lost loved ones or have had loved ones affected by the virus, and family members who've lost jobs, so it really is true that relationships are vitally important throughout this pandemic. And even though we're in the virtual environment, it really kind of underscores how important that relationships are. They're really the foundation upon which we support each other. I can assure you that all areas are working together to support students and really deliver our essential services and just be with our students.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Vice President Gomez mentioned a little while back the flu shot and food supply initiative for next week. I've seen lines of students and family picking up laptops at hotspots. So we actually, and we call that all touchless, but we really do touch each other whenever we can supply each other with provisions and necessities like that. And that in addition to really ramping up the technology. So we are waking up every morning thinking about how much we can do and do better as the year proceeds. And we welcome any suggestions from anyone about how to continue to improve as we go through the rest of this academic year.
Thank you very much. Our next question is, will there be an increase in academic advisors, and how will the outreach look like in the spring?
Hi, Diana. I do have an answer to that, and I'm very pleased to report that our directors of student success and advising have been working super hard this term to increase the number of advisors and fill the vacancies. So right now, as a matter of fact, we're completing the hiring of 3 new advisors for the College of Business, 5 new advisors for the College of Health and Human Services, and 1 advisor for the College of Arts and Letters. We're hoping to complete all of these this month and bring them on board by spring term. Our advisor student ratio is now will be less than 1 to 500 once we've completed all of the hirings this spring. And that brings us actually to less than the national average for large urban public institutions. And in addition to our college advisors, of course, we have advisors in EOP, student athletics, international program, and the Honors College to help support those students. So we're working not only to replace vacancies, add a couple of advisors, but also to increase the collaboration amongst our advisors and the communication between our advisors who are serving multiple students, so that we can get students to the right place and try even harder to get them the right answer the first time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Holly. Our next question is there a specific policy that can hold a professor accountable if they are only hosting little to none Zoom meetings in a semester, as the school did spend about $1 million on online virtual training for professors? Is there a certain policy to hold them accountable for not hosting any Zoom meetings in that aspect?
Let me attempt to answer that question. The fact is that we've trained our faculty in supporting a variety of modes of teaching. So both include live, asynchronous lectures, demonstrations, and discussions. And we've encouraged our faculty to choose low bandwidth options to match the students' technology and life situations. Having said that, that does not necessarily mean that a faculty is precluded from being engaged, continually engaged with students. If there are problems with such practices, I think it's very appropriate, as I've said before, to approach that faculty and express concern. If there is a lack of responsiveness in that regards, then avail yourself of the process that I've mentioned. That is, you go first to the department chair and express the concerns with the lack of responsiveness. And then if that doesn't resolve the issue, then definitely go up to the dean, the academic dean. The idea is that oftentimes a dean may not be aware of, a chair may not be aware, but you as a student certainly have a voice. And again, first try and resolve the issue with the faculty. If unable to deal with it at that level, looking at the other venues that you have for trying to address your concerns as a student is really critical. I can tell you that when I served as academic dean, I really appreciated when students came to me to express some challenges they had. Usually I would ask, have you talked to the faculty member? Have you spoken to the chair? And oftentimes it was resolved in those lower levels, but if it wasn't, I certainly was prepared to assist the student in addressing whatever issue there was. So again, you do have a voice. Make sure that it's heard, to make sure that the course it's being delivered is certainly addressing your need and the needs of all students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question. What can a student do if they cannot return the money for the rescinded financial aid packages in the current circumstance that we are in?
Hi, this is Linda from Financial Aid again. So students with an outstanding balance are encouraged to contact the university's cashier's office for options.
Thank you very much. Next question. How is the university being ADA compliant during this transition to remote learning?
Hi there, I'm Jennifer Celaya Davis, Associate Vice President for Student Life, and I'll go ahead and address that question. When we moved to remote instruction in the spring, it was really important for the Office for Students with Disabilities to put as much information as possible right smack dab in the middle of their website, because we know when students need information, we need it now. So what they were able to do was create a new series of menus that list for the students their appropriate accommodation and how that would be converted into the remote environment. So students would be able to select the particular accommodation they need and see how that would now be accommodated in our remote experience. So for instance, if a student needed to have note-taking, if they needed, let's give the example of what we're doing right now. We're in our Zoom together. And if somebody needed real-time captioning assistance, then the faculty member who's instructing the class would give the captioner access to the Zoom ahead of time so that the student could then be able to see them simultaneously while they're hearing the Zoom session proceeding. There are all of these different specific ways to make the accommodations for students work in the remote environment, and those are listed right there on the OSD webpage. Communication and collaboration continue to be the most important parts of supporting students throughout the pandemic. and really even before the pandemic. So faculty, students, and the Office for Students with Disabilities work together with others in the university to make sure accommodations are upheld. So communication is critical. The Office for Students with Disabilities continues to provide information over email to students and to faculty, and they're also available by phone as well as through Zoom hours. Earlier in the fall semester, they wanted to increase that access to being able to call in and have students receive immediate answers or to kind of brainstorm or work through a particular situation. So they offer 2 days a week for a few hours each day on Tuesdays and Wednesdays from 12 to 2. Students can call the main office line and speak to a team member and work through whatever their particular circumstance is. And right now, students are able to request their accommodations for the spring semester so that everybody can have that information and as much time as possible to make sure that that critical communication continues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next question, and this is a question that was asked earlier but was not answered, and I believe now we do have an answer to it. When will we be given access to textbooks or course reserves online while the campus is closed? And I believe Provost, yeah.
Thank you so much, Diana. So the library currently provides access to electronic course reserves through course reading list in Canvas courses. The library also has been working with publishers to provide access to e-versions when available to textbooks. Unfortunately, the library is currently unable to provide access to physical course reserve materials at this time. Additional information about access to the library and services is found on the website, and I will add the link on the chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. For those who are barely going in, we will be having a Q&A at 5:40, so please hold on a little longer. Our next question is, how will spring commencement, if there is any, will look like?
Okay. Spring commencement is, as you might expect, a question mark, as it was last spring. We have not solidified plans for it because we're waiting and watching and seeing how circumstances may or may not change. So I know that that's a non-answer, but that's the best one I can give you at this point. There are really no plans one way or the other in place for spring commencement. And I am staying very close to the issue because it's my very favorite week of the year. So I can't wait to get back to our commencement ceremonies and greet our students as they proceed across the stage.
Thank you very much, President Covino. Our next question is there a plan to reinstate emergency housing while following COVID-19 guidelines?
Again, this is Carol from the Dean of Students Office. I think, as we've heard, that's really going to depend on what happens with the COVID-19 situation and with the limits set by county and state public health offices. As Betty was describing, we currently have a very small population that lives on campus. All have agreed to very stringent health and safety guidelines that they need to follow. And we're really actually quite protective of them and of the staff that need to come in to service them, whether that's the custodial staff, the maintenance staff, food providers, et cetera. You know, we take very seriously our responsibility to keep all of those people safe. So moving people in on a short-term basis isn't always the safest option currently, for sure. So rather than short-term emergency housing, we've been assisting students on a case-by-case basis. So when we become aware of a student who is housing insecure, we look at their individual circumstances and all of the options and resources available to us. So we work very closely with financial aid to see if there's any monetary solutions, examining whether they're grants or scholarships or various aid that maybe has not been awarded that could be an option for the student. We work very closely with the referral specialist and the student health center to look for available housing in the community to see if that's an option for the student. Emergency grants have often been used to help students with housing needs in the community. All to say, it's a priority. I mean, students can't learn unless they're safe and have stable housing and food. So we put a great deal of attention in trying to solve those dilemmas. So we do hope to bring back the emergency housing program. It's been a fantastic way to assist students. And as President Covino was saying, it's sort of a day-to-day. We're waiting to see what happens with the pandemic.
Thank you very much. Our second to last question is, will students be forced to turn on their cameras next semester?
Looking for the button. This is Provost Alvarado. And do know that with regards to the camera being turned on, I think it's important again to acknowledge academic freedom, up to each faculty to decide how they administer their course. That being said, there's also the need to comply with California law on privacy and recording. And so students who are experiencing this problem are encouraged to reach out to the faculty and explain why this requirement may be a problem for them. And again, I've described the problem resolution process that we have in place. It's important to note that faculty who are asking to turn on the camera, also these faculty have been told when they participated in the summer institute training, that they cannot compel students to do so. And that complies with California law with regards to privacy and recording. So faculty have been informed of that. And if it is happening, again, it's important for students to voice their concerns to the department chair and then to the dean if needs be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our last question before we move on to our Q&A session, which is the one we all been waiting for. Will we be going virtual fall 2021?
We are currently planning to have the campus open for fall 2021. And all of our plans are moving in that direction. I can't express confidence one way or the other at the moment, as you might imagine, but we're planning to be open. We're looking forward to seeing the walkway full of students and faculty and staff, and we will keep you posted along the way as we approach that time. But that is certainly the plan at the moment, yes.
Thank you very much, President Covino. That is it for the questions. We will now be moving on to the Q&A session. Our Vice President for Academic Governance, Jocelyn Vargas, and ASI will be reading off the questions via the Q&A tool down below. I will go ahead and hand this to her now. Jocelyn.
Thank you, Diana. Can everyone hear me? Just want to make sure. Okay. Hey, Golden Eagles, we'll now be starting our Q&A session. Due to time constraints, we may not get to every question. However, I encourage you all to follow up with Diana or myself so we can get those questions answered for you. Our contact information will be provided at the end of this event. And without further ado, we'll begin our Q&A session. One of the first questions we had was, what is the turnaround when requesting for laptops from the students applying to receive them?
I can field that one. It's a matter of timing. Currently, we're distributing laptops on Wednesday morning. So if a student applies before Wednesday morning, we're able to supply it, within hours even. We hope to expand that at the beginning of the semester as we have an influx of new students. So we will be expanding the 1 day to multiple days. But we also, I can speak to students who have called us the day of distribution saying, you know, they need a computer. Can you help me? And we scurry and try to meet that need. So the longest it would take, I would say, would be a week, but that's on rare occasions.
Thank you, Carol. Our next question is, for housing, do we have to have a dining plan or can we just cook our own meals?
Hello again. So as Dr. Gizabi mentioned, one of the reasons why we did ask for students to have a meal plan for especially this COVID pandemic is in order to protect them and our community and reduce their interactions with the community. So by offering them a meal plan, we wanted to reduce the need for them to go out into the community because, as you know, the LA County area is very much escalated with the number of cases, and we deemed it to be the safest and most practical way for us to help reduce that exposure. As Monica mentioned, you know, just being out in the community is an added exposure and an increased risk for our community. And we wanted to make sure that all the students that moved in understood that as part of the need for us to keep the community safe.
Thank you. Our next question is, what else do you have planned for addressing the low Black student enrollment? Black students have been expressing their frustration of dealing with racism from both professors and fellow students for a long time now. We are tired and ready to push the conversation beyond addressing the low enrollment rate. What work will be done and how will engaging be done?
I can take that. I can take this one. It's Nancy Wanda-McKee again. You know, we are, Student Life is really embarking on some great initiatives. So we are about to finish hiring a new assistant director for new student and family programs. Actually, it's called New Student and Family Engagement now, new title. But we know that it's really important to engage students from the very beginning. As brand new students. And so, you know, one of the signature programs we have is we have the RISE program, which is a mentoring program for Black students or anybody interested in the Black experience. And so we've got a new assistant director coming on to helm that initiative, you know, and from that, you know, we hope to, you know, really expand some of our opportunities. And we hear you and know that we want to do more in this area. And so we're really excited because, you know, I know that you're going to find that, you know, our new staff person is going to be just a great addition to our community. But the other exciting transition, which I can announce to you actually who the person is, we have a new Associate Dean of Students for Community Care. And Dr. Isis Stansberry has taken that role. Some of you may know Dr. Stansberry from the Office for Students with Disabilities, but she also has very much, she is the co-chair of the Black Faculty and Staff Caucus, and she's going to be helping us at the university make sure that we create an environment, you know, at the university that's really conducive, you know, because for our Black students, because, you know, we have made important strides in increasing Black student enrollment, but we also know we want to make sure that Cal State LA, you know, is a very supportive place, you know, and that our students want to stay, persist, and graduate. And so we're very excited to begin working even more intentionally on these efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Our next question is, when will the new residence hall be open?
Hello, Betty Kennedy again. The construction is on time and we anticipate that there will be no blocks to us opening for fall 21. And everything is a go and we're marketing and hoping that we will be in person so that we can fill those halls of 1,500 additional beds. We're very excited about that.
Thank you. Our next question is, do we need campus police who are hired to protect students on campus that is close to students and faculty?
Okay, Lisa Chavez here. I'll answer that question. So the campus is not closed currently. We do have quite a few number of staff and some faculty and students that are on campus attending classes. And the campus public safety department is responsible. They are really the only entity on campus that's around 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to both protect the occupants that are on campus, as well as protecting the campus in general and the property that is on campus. And so they are on campus operating and around the clock.
Thank you. Our next question is, when we graduate from Cal State LA, will we get our diploma via email or by mail to our home? And will graduation be on Zoom? Will we be able to buy our cap and gowns at campus or in a public shop?
Janet, are you there? Do you have some information about the question that was asked? Janet Dial. Okay, well, I'll try my best. We delivered the diplomas by mail. We did last summer. We continue to do that. What people get, if there's a live commencement, is a diploma cover, and we also send out the diploma covers by mail. Whether the commencement will be on Zoom or not or will be delivered in some other way or celebrated in some other way is still, as I said earlier, an open question. So.
Thank you, President Covino. Our next question is, there are only a few classes in summer. Will school open for more summer classes this summer since we cannot go on vacation next summer due to the pandemic? Also, can we take 3 classes in the summer?
So I will attempt to answer that question. This is Provost Alvarado. In terms of the number of courses that a student takes, I wasn't aware that there was a limit, but certainly, taking the opportunity of being able to remain on track is really essential. So do know that we will offer as many courses as students need during the summer.
Thank you, Provost. What is Cal State LA doing to strengthen its relationships with high schools in the local community to ensure those students have an opportunity to enroll at this university?
So I will again attempt to respond to that in that we have a very active recruitment staff that's working in building relationships with local high schools, but also local community colleges. And the idea is to make sure that students are aware that we want them here at Cal State LA. We want local students. And so we have been quite active in those efforts. But in addition to that, we also have academic programs that are building sort of pathway programs to get students interested about wanting to come to LA well before they even reach high school, sometimes as early as elementary schools, for sure middle school, but absolutely during high school, so that students can envision themselves as being a Cal State LA student. And so again, there are quite a few programs that have those pathways and are working to build those partnerships and with local high schools that is yielding great outcomes for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost.
A little something to that?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. This is Margaret Garcia again. Yes, I wanted to emphasize that some of the high school counselors and community college counselors are currently trying to find ways to reach out to their students who are in a virtual environment and trying to support their activities as they navigate the application process. And we have worked with them. We're working on different things to reach out to these high school students, these community college students who may need a little more help from others in order to support this process. We are here. If anyone's aware of anyone at any level who would like to have more information, please send them to us, send them to admissions and outreach, and I can provide more links to you as well. We want to be supportive of those students who need a little more help, and we have application workshops as well. So we want everyone to have access to that. Okay.
Thank you. Our next question is for President Covino. President Covino, this is a pretty lengthy one, so just an FYI. What is Dr. Covino doing on a personal level and on a continuous basis to reach out to students and to personally speak to them openly? Dr. Zelesny at CSU Bakersfield has a regular event called Runner Talk, where she has Zoom sessions to speak to students and listen to the problems they are having. Is Dr. Covino open to hosting these kinds of events to build that kind of relationship?
Hi, I apologize. This is Nancy Jocelyn, but President Covino had to step away. He had a previous commitment and I forgot to tell you about. So, but we can relay the question to him at some later point.
Thank you, Nancy. Our next question then would be, when do we need to return the hotspots if we need it next semester?
I'll fill that one. Hi, it's Carol again. Currently, we're only asking students who are graduating at the semester to return their hotspots or laptops. So if you're not graduating, we anticipate that you'll be able to keep that through next semester and really as long as we have remote learning.
Thank you, Carol. Our next question is, why is housing linking accommodation to COVID-19 testing?
Hello again. So as I mentioned previously, and this is Betty Kennedy again, as I mentioned previously, we go by the guidelines of what the public health states that we should do in order to maintain safety. And also we were upfront with our residents and told them that in order to keep them individually and our community as a whole safe, we wanted to do periodic testing. We waited until we saw what the progression of the pandemic was, and we are at a point where it is still very pervasive. And so as a precaution, we are asking our students to have tests at intervals. And this is for their own personal knowledge as well as for us in order to provide them services and to quarantine and to keep them safe. So it's a community effort and it's an individual need for us to know and for them to know how their activities may have impacted their possible infection. And we want to be able to know if we need to provide services such as delivering meals so that they can safely quarantine and reduce the risk of them in passing on the infection as well. So it was stated up front that we wanted to do that when the need arose. And we're kind of getting to that point with pandemic in the state that it is in this county, that we want our residents to be tested at certain intervals for everyone's safety and to keep everyone from spreading it as well.
Thank you. Our next question is, why does the campus spend $5 million on campus police, more than the budgets of the Counseling Center, the Dreamers Resource Center, and the Office for Students with Disabilities together?
Well, this is Lisa again. I'll attempt to answer that question. Unfortunately, I do not have their budget in front of me right now, but as you are aware, we have a public safety department that includes police officers, but also includes community outreach individuals, as well as locksmiths that do all the locksmith, take care of all the locks on campus, as well as the camera technicians. So their budget includes not only police officers, but other individuals as well that look after the health and safety of the campus. So, you know, without having the budgets in front of me, unfortunately, I'm not prepared to answer specifics related to that at this point.
Thank you. Our next question is, what is the policy for professors holding classes only 3 times this whole semester or not at all? Only posting slides, homeworks, and assignments.
I'll attempt to answer that question. And I believe I've answered a very similar question with regards to the modality of faculties choosing to deliver instruction. The key is accessibility, I believe. And again, if a student is not satisfied with the quality of instruction, certainly relaying that to the department chair is important, but also know that you as students also have a voice, and that is during course evaluations. Important for you to complete those honestly and to evaluate that faculty in a fair way that accurately reflects the experience that you had. Because those evaluations then are part of the evaluation process for all faculty. And so you do have a voice, and it's important that you take advantage of that process to relay both immediately in addressing those issues with the faculty and then with the chair and the dean. But in terms of providing feedback and accountability to that faculty, availing yourself of that faculty evaluation process or the course evaluation process to be honest about the experience you had. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost. Our next question is, how can you police academic dishonesty in virtual learning?
I can try and answer that first if I'll take a stab, and then perhaps the provost can chime in. To be honest, I mean, it's difficult, particularly with all of the various outlets such as chegg.com, Course Hero, et cetera, that can answer questions in real time. But we're doing our best. We're working very closely with those entities like chegg.com that can, if we submit questions that have been posted, we can do an investigation and find out which students access those questions and hold those students accountable. We're talking to faculty about the best ways to structure their instructions to decrease the pressures on students that often lead to students making those types of choices. And I think that personally, that's key, is really talking to students about, you know, what's leading a student to make that choice and how can we help them before they make those bad choices to cheat. So I know in the Office of Student Conduct, we're thinking about that a lot and working with faculty to try and decrease and help students that way.
Thank you.
I'll just chime in a little more here just to add, because that's absolutely correct, in that it's very difficult to come up with a technical, logical solution to what is inherently sort of an ethical dilemma. And so I think part of the answer is in sort of building a community that is based on personal accountability, personal responsibility, and the importance of being ethical members of the university community, both as faculty and as students, as staff, everyone. I actually experienced that in my doctoral program. When I was at the University of Virginia, they have what they call the Honors Pledge or the Honor Pledge. That is in every assignment that we completed. And this is true from undergrad all the way to doctoral programs, that you signed a pledge in handwriting, basically saying that you received help from no one and that this product is entirely your own. And there's a whole process for investigating violations of what is the honor code. And so building that kind of a culture, right, where everyone expects everyone else to be ethical and responsible, I think it's part of the solution in that we will always come short if we're just looking at technological solutions to address for that. For example, some of the solutions require cameras to be on, and I just answered some questions about students having problems with cameras. For example, if there's any movement in the background, it assumes that someone's there to help you. And when you have students who have other family members in the home, they're bound to walk in the background. And so that will flag it as cheating when in fact it wasn't. So technology is limited. I think part of it is appealing and developing a system that is grounded solidly in sort of ethical responsibility for every individual is the long-term solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost Alvarado. And unfortunately, this was our last question. Again, thank you for tuning in, Golden Eagles. And don't forget that you can follow up with Diana or myself if your question was not answered at this time. Thank you. And I'll be now sending it back to our ASI President, Diana Chavez.
Thank you, Jocelyn, and thank you, Golden Eagles and campus community, for those questions. It is now the end of the webinar, and I want to thank our panelists, President Covino, ASI staff, and I for making this happen. If you still have further questions, comments, or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact Jocelyn or myself. Our information will be provided on the screen any moment now. Students, please check your emails shortly. We will be sending you all an evaluation feedback for a chance to win gift cards for attending. Other than that, thank you everyone and have a good evening.